You're listening to the Verdigris podcast with Rae and Andi. I'm Andi.
And I'm Rae.
And we have a website. It's verdigrispodcast.org. We are also on Instagram and on Facebook. And we also have merch. So if you'd like to get any of the little extras or the merch, please check out verdigrispodcast.org.
Hi, Andi.
Hi, Rae. It is still summer, and now it is time for us to celebrate travel. So we celebrated America's pastime last month, but summer is all about getting out of Dodge. You know what I mean?
Vacation!
Yes. Vacating all of your responsibilities. You will, of course, come back to a ton of dirty laundry and weeds in your garden, but it's nice to get away from home sometimes, you know?
Yeah, even a little bit.
Even a little bit. And so this is also a great time to talk about postcards.
Which is one of our favorite things.
It really is. And it's one of those things that most people don't think about quite so much anymore.
Yeah.
They're not so common. And I mean, it totally makes sense. We literally have computers in our pockets, which means we can communicate with each other instantly and I wouldn't say for free exactly, but prepaid.
Yeah.
So these days, you know, you'll send texts back and forth with loved ones and people you'd rather not text with, probably. But historically, that was all done with postcards. And postcards are just a delightful little remnant of those more olden times. And I still get postcards from friends and loved ones, not quite as much as I used to, but I get some from you sometimes.
I was
when
just
you
going to
travel.
say, including me, because I adore sending postcards. In reading up on the history of postcards, I actually learned that most postcards now, because they still sell them, right? Anytime you go on vacation, it's easy to find them. But apparently most people buy them as souvenirs to bring home for themselves rather than to send other people.
Guilty. I do that. And the other thing that I do a great deal is if I go into any antique or vintage kind of store, I'm always trying to find old postcards. Previously, ideally, postcards that have been used, that have been sent.
I love those too. So there's two kinds of postcard collectors, right? They're the ones that want the pristine condition because they're interested in the image only, right? And I totally respect that. But I like to spy on people's lives.
Same. I love the dialogue. Well, I mean, one way, I guess, the monologue that people send to each other, right? And just sometimes it's just very simple. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's really sad. There's every kind of message out there, and I adore them. And I know you have an even larger collection than I have. So, dear listeners, one of the things that Rae and I do once a year now is we have a workshop to teach our students cursive. Now, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here, but basically, lots of students still get cursive, but lots of students also don't get cursive anymore. And if you don't know how to read cursive, then you are going to have a lot of trouble reading any document prior to 1950? And
yeah, I mean, even the 1970s, honestly. Right. I mean, not everybody's typewriting things.
Exactly. And maybe, you know, their own grandparents, you know, they can't read their notes. So one of the things we do is we teach students how to read and write in cursive. And one of the ways that we help them learn how to read cursive is with postcards.
And then we have them write their own postcard. And none of them have ever written a postcard before. It's so fun. I love that.
It really is. And it's kind of crazy that they've never written, you know, they might have written a greeting card to somebody, but never a postcard.
Yeah.
And I love getting postcards. In fact, one of the postcards that I got semi-recently from friend of the podcast and also guest of the podcast is from Colin.
Oh my gosh, that's so excellent. Oh my God, it's the big duck. Oh, this is so excellent. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you, Colin. He sent me a postcard of the big duck on Long Island. And it is a recent photo of the big duck, but I know that it's been also a topic of postcards in the past.
Yeah.
So we can go over a little bit the history of postcards, although I think it's relatively obvious, commonsensical.
Yeah.
You know, postcards are not as old as time. They really are kind of a recent phenomenon, which makes sense because, mailing stuff was very costly until trains, basically, number one. And number two, people didn't really travel for funsies in the olden days either. So really, the birth of the postcard as we know it today comes from basically 1900, right? It's right around the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. And the real golden age of postcards is anything from about 1900 to, I guess, World War II, something like that.
That sounds about right. I mean, I read a whole bunch of online sources, including the Smithsonian's kind of encapsulated history. And, there's some governmental challenges at first. So it really starts like in the 1860s, 1870s. But of course, images were harder to produce then too. And they did this great thing. This is so governmental. So it was like twice as much to mail a privately produced postcard as it was a government produced postcard, which I thought was fantastic. And then once they changed that and the technology to reproduce images and everything else, that's really when postcards start to take off.
Right. And from 1898 through, I believe, 1952, the cost of a postage stamp in the U.S. was 1 cent.
Yeah.
Right? 1 cent. And if you compare that with inflation today, which I did because I was curious, because I don't know what 1 cent in 1900 means. But 1 cent in 1900 means about 40 cents today, which is less than the cost of a postcard today. So postcards were actually cheaper to send, comparatively, back in the day than they are today, which I think is really interesting, right? Because it means that, people sent postcards a lot, and they thought of it as a very cheap way to communicate.
Right. Yeah. And I think what's also key is before everybody had not just a text machine in their pocket, but before everybody had a camera in their pocket, it was a quick way to show kind of what you were doing too, like in a very professional way. Like you could take a photograph and have them developed, and that was kind of an expensive hobby, but then it took a while to get them developed and to show them to people. And these look awesome. And, they're not that expensive. So I think that's also part of it too.
Right. And many postcards, just like today, were postcards that you could get for free from companies that were trying to advertise. Actually, I have one with me here. I have to find it in my stack that I got. But check it out.
Oh, so that was exactly the kind of thing I was going to mention. So this is from the Washington Duke Hotel in Durham, North Carolina. So hotels and motels had postcards made of their space, which, I feel like in the modern world, we don't really take a picture of where we stay. But that was a super good way of saying, this is a cool place, and it's clean, and it's bright, and it's, whatever. It's got in-room showers, whatever was the innovative thing.
Right. So as a result, a lot of hotels, motels, any kind of destination really would want to have these free postcards that you could just pick up and use. And in some cases, they'd even send them for you, right? Yeah. You would just leave them at the front desk. I mean, this is... I know this is very foreign for the new generation, but I remember when you had an actual key, and every time you left the room, you left it at the front desk. You didn't take it with you, and so you had a lot more contact with the concierge in a way that you just don't anymore.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
But so postcards historically were made of all sorts of different things. And a lot of them are things that today we would find really kind of baffling. Because, as you said, now we can take, 500 pictures wherever we are. But back in the day, most people didn't have cameras at all. Cameras don't really become a common thing to own, I believe, until after World War II.
Yeah, after World War II. There are some inexpensive, so like a upper middle class person prior to that could own a Brownie, but it was expensive to buy the film and develop and all that stuff. So it really was post World War II when it became much more common and available.
Exactly. So what people would have is postcards, and they would send them to their loved ones in some cases like multiple times a day, right?
Yeah.
To give them an idea of where they were. In a lot of cases, the writing is actually more informal than I think we expect. Because I don't know, I feel like in popular culture, we really think of kind of, wartime letters and Dear John letters and those kinds of very my dear loved one and blah, blah, blah. And it's all very formal. And in reality, you look at these postcards and the writing is still this gorgeous cursive, sometimes very hard to decipher, gorgeous cursive. But very often the writing is actually just I'm here, it's okay, we're going this other place next. XOXO.
Oh, yeah, weather's good. Yeah, let's share some of our favorites because I think we both have some pretty awesome examples of postcard writing.
I just have to figure out if I can read some of mine, and a lot of mine are in French too, so that's not super helpful. But
well, I will read one from Fredericksburg because I thought that would be topical. So it's on the front of it is a picture of downtown Fredericksburg, and it's one of these kind of hand-colored ones, so y'all can picture that. And on the back, and they're sending it to somebody in Pennsylvania. So it says, "Hello, Johnny and Irene. Here we are, going places and eating ham." That's just my favorite. We're going to Richmond tomorrow. Weather is fine. So, I just love that. Like, going places and eating ham.
Eating ham, very important. I have one here, and I thought of you because I know you're going there soon. But this is...
Yes. Oh, this is the American Falls at Niagara Falls. This is so exciting. I'm going there very soon. So there will be reports back.
Yes. And so this is a postcard, and it's colorized. It's like a nighttime postcard that like shows a rainbow on the waterfall. And of course, we will have all of these postcards scanned and on the website and on social media. So if you want to see what they actually look like, we're happy to show you. But this one on the front of it, like scrawled on the side of it, it says, "I saw this Wednesday, August 11th, 1926. It sure is a wonderful sight to see." And on the back, it says, "Hello, Harry. Hope you are a good boy. I'm going under the falls tomorrow. To-morrow." My favorite. Your sister, Catherine. And you can just guess the relationship between these siblings. I don't know. It just gives you a little insight into people's lives in a way that feels to me a lot less creepy than social media. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, because I think one of the things is everybody knows that when you write a postcard, anybody can read it, right? If it's, yes, technically it's your private letters, but you kind of assume that like anybody who sees it, if it's, if you're in an apartment and it happens to be sitting out, people are going to read it, right? So like it's not that personal, but then it also is at the same time. Like this one I love. So the postcard is what I consider to be a space I might not send a postcard from, but it is the view in Oakwood Cemetery in Warren, Ohio. And I have a whole bunch of cemeteries that have postcards. So this is not unique to this place. This is from 1910. So this person writes, "This is a most beautiful cemetery. Professor Dana took us out in his machine the other day, and we drove through it. I like my work fine." I just love that.
Non sequitur.
You can picture like, the sort of top-down Model T, right? Sort of bumping through this beautiful cemetery.
I don't have any text on this one, but it's Washington's tomb at Mount Vernon.
Oh, nice.
Which is really nice. It shows the gate and the obelisks on either side. So, yes, people used to make postcards of cemeteries all over the place. And again, that is something that we think of as deeply strange today, just like the fact that people used to treat them as parks. We've talked about that before on the podcast. We'll talk about it again in the future, I'm sure. These postcards, we have to remember again that people just didn't have those cameras in their pockets and still like to communicate. And so you will see all sorts of postcards of things that are kind of local interest, right? So whether that be cemeteries, I will show you a few other examples in a minute. A lot of it was a chance for towns and cities too to show what they had.
Right, yeah, to self-promotion.
Exactly.
So this one I picked out because every year that we teach our cursive workshop.
Is it my favorite one?
It is.
It's my favorite
It is. So I specifically selected this. Now the image on the front is kind of nice. It's the Little Church of the Flowers in Glendale, California, which I actually have been to. It's in the Forest Lawn Memorial Park, so it's in a cemetery. But more importantly,
the text is just the best, you guys.
This person is writing from a cemetery. Now, just keep that in context, right? So it's July 30th, 1944. "Dear friend, how are you? We are fine. I had a terrible heart attack last Monday, but I have a fine doctor, so am okay. We like it here for a while anyway. Mr. L is making good money. He had to work today. Be good and write your friend." So I just love that. Like, I'm going to put a picture of a cemetery after I've had a pretty bad heart attack just to tell you I'm not there, or this is where I hope to be once I get a worse. I'm not really sure what the message is.
I just don't know how to interpret that postcard. Yeah. It's either like the most amazing passive-aggressive message ever, or completely oblivious, or I don't know. Like, everything about it is awesome.
I always imagine it as like, I just like, sort of the Pollyanna, like there's just light, like a halo of light shining behind this person. Like, well, I had a really bad heart attack, but it's all fine.
It's okay.
We're good.
I love it. Yeah, there's a lot of postcards of hospitals and things like this. Here's one. This is the Sanitarium of Paris, Texas. I mean, it's a fine-looking building, I guess, but it's just a very random postcard to be sending to anybody, right?
Yeah.
But it was clearly sent. It's a used postcard. It was sent in 1917. So, these things do get sent out, but sometimes you have to wonder, like, why that one? Here's another one that I really love. This one, architecturally, is utterly gorgeous. It is a Richardsonian Romanesque, or as you would call a Romanesque revival. So very heavy arches, heavy masonry, a very nice looking building. And there's a couple trees and some people standing in front of it. This postcard was sent in, 1913. And it is the orphan asylum in Bridgeport, Connecticut. So, great? Question mark. It just seems like a very weird thing to send a postcard of, but this person certainly did, and it's actually quite a long postcard. It's sent to a sister from, it looks like another sister. Anyway.
So speaking of length of postcards, this is one of my favorites in my collection. So on the front is the Paradise Inn dining room in Rainier National Park. So it's the interior of parkitecture, which I adore, right? So like that kind of rustic architecture for parks. It's black and white, and it's got these great columns that are made out of just trees, right? And then on the back, this person spent a penny and spent the time on 9/8/1949 to say, "Hello, dear. There's not enough space here to write more than just hello, my dear. Love, Harry." I mean, he had plenty of space, actually, to say something more useful than there's not enough space to write you anything. But he made a point of saying, I can't really tell you anything.
I love it.
I love that.
It reminds me of when students ask for extra credit but don't do the work for the assignment. It's like, you just do the work for the assignment. I probably shouldn't say this. I'm sorry. Maybe I'll take this out of the podcast. We'll see. Yeah, there's a lot of kind of fun text. And in some cases, like in this one, this is a Boston bridge in Public Gardens. You can see it's a very nice little suspension bridge in a garden.
That is pretty.
It's very attractive. On the front, it says, "Now, what do you think of that?" And on the back is just the address. So there's literally no context. It's just, hey, check it out, and then they sent it. So tons of space on the back, but no text at all.
How old is that one? Do you know?
1907.
The reason I ask is because in reading that really detailed history, there was a point at which you actually couldn't put any text. All you could do is put the address you were sending it to on the back. And then the post office allowed them to be separated, so they had that line. So you could actually write something and put the address. And it had to be on the left-hand side, and it was all very specific. So I think that's actually before that.
That's so cool.
That's very cool.
And actually, that reminds me, I actually had to teach my kids how to write a postcard because they didn't know.
Right, yeah.
Right? And to be like, no, you need to keep that side free for the address.
Yeah.
And you need to make sure to use a pen that doesn't bleed because otherwise, bad things happen.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not going to surprise you at all. But my favorite historic postcards, and the ones that I have many, many, many of, are bridge postcards. I have a ton
Does not surprise me.
I have a ton of infrastructure in general. Like, for instance, here's a dam and lock one that I have from St. Paul, Minnesota. I really
that's
like.
Beautiful.
But
I think we saw that, didn't we?
I think we did when we were there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But I have just an absolute ton of bridges, and a lot of them are not bridges that you would consider to be particularly photogenic by today's standards. So this is one that I absolutely adore. It's in Oregon, and it's a vertical lift truss bridge. Again, these are on the website, but you can see.
Oh, that's very cool, though. I mean, it's super innovative. Like, you could see why a town would put that on a postcard, right? Like,
Exactly. And so for a technology nerd like me, it's just one of those things where when I can find these postcards, they just make me so happy.
Yeah.
I don't have a photo of it here, but so I'll just have to describe it. But my bridge obsession largely started from one particular bridge in Paris, which someday I'll talk about on this podcast. It's called Le Pont de Bercy. Actually, it's a 2-level bridge, right? So it's got regular roadway on the first level, and then it's got the metro on the top. And I have quite a few postcards of that particular bridge. But one of my favorites is a postcard showing the flood of 1909, where you can see the water like coming up to the first deck, basically, of the bridge. It did not wash the bridge away, but it was very bad flood. And that's another thing that historic postcards often did, is document some kind of event, right? So a little bit like, a news flash,
Right.
or just an image on Instagram or whatever of whatever event took place, and you would have that in a postcard to show, hey, wow, look, there's this big flood going on or whatever.
Some of my favorites are actually postcards that are at night, and they often are sort of touting the fact that they have good street lights or they've just lit up this building or whatever. So I really like those, and they always have this now we would say photoshopped, but like they have a moon in there, which clearly is drawn in because they're always the same full moon with like a little bit of clouds in front of it, which I love.
Yes, a lot of these postcards did post-processing, right? Because back then, photography was still black and white. So when all these postcards are in color, then that's, all that color is added after the fact. And I have a bunch of these. I know you do too, right?
Yeah.
So this is a random little parklet too, with a little merry-go-round.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
From
it's
the
adorable.
1942.
So the whole reason that we're going on and on about postcards and kind of putting them in context is because we wanted, Andi and I both have lots of travels this summer.
Mm-hmm.
And while we were sending, physical postcards to each other, we thought it would be fun to also kind of update the whole process of postcarding. And so we did audio postcards to one another. So we're going to share with you, I will say I recorded way too many of them. So just a few of
Yes, I also recorded too many of them, and so I'm sure we will have some extras also on social media.
Yeah.
I am not a social media user, so this is a great way to just communicate with each other, and again, to supplement those physical postcards, paper postcards, with audio postcards.
Yeah, and it's fun because you can describe, what you're hearing too, because you can't quite capture that in a physical postcard. So we both had a lot of fun with this, and we hope you enjoy them.
Exactly. So without further ado, we'll have a bunch of these audio postcards sent to each other. And then next month, we'll talk about something else. But right now, honestly, it's still summer vacation. And so we have vacated our responsibilities, including podcasting responsibilities. So enjoy summer, everybody. And hopefully, if you do any fun travel, send us either an oral or physical postcard. We would love it.
Yes, please do. Wish you were here.
Bye, Rae.
Bye, Andi.
Dear Rae, I'm on a road trip with my daughters and my mother-in-law. Yesterday, we stopped in Strasburg, Virginia, to try to take a look at some of their local architecture and ideally museums. But as is often the case, it was pouring rain. So our plans kind of fell by the wayside. We ended up going to this antique mall, one of those huge places where there's no windows to the outside and you get lost immediately, and they have just about everything. My teenager particularly loved the uranium glass. The little one particularly loved the Star Wars memorabilia that was available. And I particularly loved the postcards that were on sale. I ended up buying a few, including one for a sanatorium, which I will post, of course, on the website. And it was generally a good time. We ended up going to a restaurant that was a local crab cake restaurant called Krabby Maggie's. That was also delightful. I love road trips. I love the excitement of road trips. I love the unexpected that always happens on road trips. And even though we were all soaked to the bone, we still managed to have an excellent time, at least so far. So more will be coming up from our next stop. Bye, Andi.
resist sending you a postcard before I've even gotten in the air, because I'm sitting here in Dulles International Airport, one of the most beautiful airports that makes you feel like you're really part of the jet age. So, very excited to start my travels. Wish you were here. Rae.
I am concluding my short little vacation in Western Maryland, and I am currently waiting for a breakfast at a bakery called the Rolling Pin, with a big giant rolling pin on the facade, as you would expect and hope to see. But the fun part is that this is in a town called Accident, which, I mean, is a choice, right? Like, would you want to live in a town called Accident? When we saw the sign and it was like Accident 5 miles, and we're like, ooh. Anyway, of course I had to look it up. So why is it called Accident? Well, this is from the Maryland website, I'm paraphrasing, that around 1751, the local gentleman was given a grant of land by King George II, and it was a big 600 acres of land, anywhere he chose in Western Maryland, and he sent out 2 different groups of surveyors. By some coincidence or accident, they ended up surveying the same tract of land, centering on the same tree, and so he named it the Accident Tract. And then when it became a town, it became the town of Accident. So this is exactly why I love road trips: fun architecture, delicious food, and surveying errors. Anyway, that's it for now. Talk to you later. Bye, Andi.
Hi, Andi. I'm sending you a postcard from the interior of my Hyatt Regency Hotel after traveling all day. Lots of snags in the travel. We are here in San Francisco, and I am overlooking one of the most 80s interior spaces I have encountered in a really long time. It's pretty cool. Big open space, and hexagons everywhere I can see. Hexagonal lobby and all kinds of 80s art. It's pretty awesome. I'm gonna sleep well.
Dear Ray, I am standing outside of the National Postal Museum right this minute. The Postal Museum itself is a really neat building. It was designed, as you all know, by Daniel Burnham's firm, mainly from his colleague after he had passed away. And it's right next to Union Station, which is one of Daniel Burnham's masterpieces. But while this museum is super cool and I encourage everyone to go check it out, my favorite part of it is the parts that feature Mr. Zip or Zippy, the logo of the zip code that was added in the 1960s. And I mean, I think of zip codes as completely commonplace, but they weren't, right? They had to start at some point, and just like area codes, they didn't start out all that early. And so, anyway, Mr. Zip is a cool little cartoon showing people, encouraging people to use the zip codes. And now on all our postcards, among other things, we do have zip codes, as opposed to back in the early days where it might be just a name and the town and maybe a street, maybe not. Anyway, thinking of you as I walk my way through a very humid and hot Washington, D.C. Bye. I'm going to add a PS to my previous postcard, because as I'm walking further down the facade of this building, on the facade of this building, it says above a doorway, quote, "Messenger of sympathy and love, servant of parted friends, consoler of the lonely, bond of the scattered family, enlarger of the common life," unquote. I love, love, love when buildings tell you what they are like that. In French, it's called architecture parlante, architecture that speaks. And this building certainly speaks out loud right from the facade. Okay, I'm actually going to go now. Bye.
Hi, Andi. I'm sending you a postcard from a Benedictine church called the Painted Church on the island of Hawaii. And you can hear the roosters in the background and all kinds of other creatures. And there's the most beautiful graveyard here. You would absolutely love it. It's these concrete crypts that are dug into the lava. Anyway, wish you were here. Love, Rae. Hi, Andi. I'm sending you a postcard from the Lilikolani Japanese Gardens in downtown Hilo, and it is absolutely beautiful. It's an urban park that's got these sculptured little ponds and fish everywhere, and this incredible bridge that goes over the water, and it's this little peaceful oasis in the middle of a really cute city. Love, Rae.
Dear Rae, I am sitting on a balcony on a rainy Thursday afternoon in Paris. Technically it's the evening. And I've been here for, I think, 24 days right now. And have I been able to record a single audio postcard for you? No, I have not. Because this city is incredible and wonderful, but also just way too much. It reminds me of those postcards that you see that have all of the things on the outside, right, that show you all the different monuments and places that you could see, right, this kind of collage. And I feel like in a lot of places, those give you the wrong expectation that, like, it's not actually going to look like that when you're there, except Paris does. In Paris, you're like, yeah, no, you can see the Eiffel Tower from all over the place. You just, go down the street and there's Notre Dame and whatever. And it's been a wonderful trip, but it's been just utterly exhausting at the same time. And it reminds me that in a city like Paris, and in a lot of other really big, wonderful destinations, any length of trip is never going to be enough to see everything. And in fact, what you want to do while you're out and about in whatever that city is to write down the things for the next trip. Because you know that you'll be back, but you also know that there's no way that you can possibly see everything in one go. And so that is probably the only audio postcard I'm going to record in Paris, because tomorrow we're off doing more activities again. But that's not to say don't visit Paris. Quite the opposite. It's come to Paris, but don't expect to see all of it in one visit or 2 visits or 10 visits. There's always more. There are always more. All right. Miss you, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Hi, Andi. You'll never guess where I am. I'm at the southernmost point of the United States. Not where you think it is. It's pretty amazing here. The water is as blue as can be. There are dark lava rocks. And the wind is pretty constant. It's called South Point on the big island of Hawaii. You can hear the waves crashing. Love, Rae.
Dear Rae, I'm recording this postcard from the last leg of my travels. I'm currently in the south of France in the Gers region. Yesterday, I went to a 12th century abbey and looked at their garden and saw all the incredible plants and fruits that they grew there back when it was still where monks lived. The day before that, we went to the ruin of an old Roman villa with just the most gorgeous mosaics from the 3rd century. I tried to explain that to my 9-year-old, and she was kind of amazed that there were mosaics that incredibly complex and beautiful from that far back. And on that same day, we also went to a medieval fortified town called La Rocingle, and the kids got to check out this like medieval little area with crossbows, and we all dressed up, and there was a trebuchet that the kids got to, I guess, set off, fire loose. I'm not sure what the word is. It was a 1/4 model of what the real size would have been. So apparently the correct size for these things would have been like 20 meters tall. And the one that the kids used was still 5 meters tall, which is still what, like 15 feet, 10 feet. I mean, it's still pretty big. Anyway, it was a delight. And now I'm just kind of enjoying nature and relaxing and eating and, okay, let's admit it, drinking a little bit too much as well. And it's been pretty magical. I'm looking forward to being home and some of the comforts of home, but this has been quite a trip. Really, really great. All right, well, I'll show you way more pictures when I return. And in the meantime, hope you're doing well. Love, Andi.